Hello, and welcome to the Yamaha Tenere 700. And here with a question. Can this motorcycle hold its own against the big, bloated, tech-heavy, touring-oriented ADV bikes of today? Especially if we focus on its road-going mannerisms. Well, let's find out. To clarify, we're well aware that since this bike's launch back in 2020, it's proved itself to be more than adept in the dirt. However, not a lot is said about its road-going performance, and that's where we come in. So, let's hit the road and see what's what. We might as well start with the seat, since that's where you'll be spending most of your time. It's surprisingly comfortable, if not just a tad wide, making getting both feet down a bit harder. It is a bench seat, so it's easy to move around and get comfortable. The way this seat is designed makes the transition from a seated to a standing position effortless. Make no mistake, however, at 879 mils, it is really tall, especially for folks below 5'8" or 178 centimeters. If that's you, best get used to half butt checking it at stoplights. The mirrors on the T7 are superbly crafted, almost as if they have been engineered by NASA. They are super stable with practically no vibrations. They offer great adjustability, however there are limitations for taller riders who will still catch the occasional glimpse of their own shoulders or elbows. The non-adjustable, cable-actuated clutch is certainly not the lightest, and in traffic it can feel pretty heavy. The far out reach and engagement point also tires you out a bit, but on the plus side it is really smooth and doesn't lurch about on you. The gearbox works great. In fact, it's probably one of the best around, at least as far as we're concerned. The ideal way to ride this bike is to short shift first to third, then stretch out fourth, fifth and sixth. In fact, first gear on this bike feels like low range. You could easily pull off in second or even in sixth. There's just so much usable torque here. Clicking up through the gearbox, there's a nice reassuring click to let you know you've hooked a gear. On the way down to first, however, there's no positive pushback from the lever to let you know you're at the bottom of the box, which is a bit of a weird feeling. A folding shift lever means no snapping it off should you drop the bike, potentially leaving you stranded. A very thoughtful addition. It's very easy to find neutral every single time, with false neutrals a very rare occurrence indeed. Again, a testament to this well-sorted gearbox. The T7 turns as tight as your skill level will allow, and gives a very confident feeling when moving at slow speeds. There's plenty of lock-to-lock steering providing tons of leverage. This makes the bike very easy to park despite its size. However, backing it up will be a challenge for all but the tallest of riders. Easing off of the preload should help make things a bit easier though. The looks of the headlights might split folks into a love it or hate it camp, but we dig it. They work great at night and the brights are super sharp. Daytime running lights are a great inclusion, increasing visibility to other road users and thus making you just a little bit safer. The same goes for the brake lights. They just work. Absolutely no complaints from us, except for the non-LED turn signals, which are a letdown. The kickstand is long because tall bike, makes sense. There's no crazy lean, so parking it in a tight space isn't an issue. It's very easy to find and flick back in, but extending it is almost always a faff. It takes 2 tries minimum. On a more positive note, it feels sturdy, and once it's down, it has a good size footprint. The engine is undoubtedly the highlight of this motorcycle. It simply dominates everything. The biggest takeaway we had from this bike is it certainly doesn't lack in power. It's such a tractor for slow speed riding with enough top-end grunt to get you well beyond the legal limit. There's a pleasant punchiness in the mid-range for effortless highway overtakes, but if you stray too far out of the meatiest part of the torque curve, it feels a little lackluster. The tach shows a limit of 12,000 RPM, however, the best you'll do is about 9,500 RPM before the limiter spoils the party. Contrary to the rough and rumble looks of this bike, the engine doesn't cause the bike to vibrate too much, but it will however present itself at higher RPMs. There isn't much in the way of engine brake on this motorcycle though. A gripe that we had with this bike is the snatchy throttle, especially in lower gears. It has an on-off feel that might deteriorate the confidence of less experienced riders, especially when maneuvering slowly. Something interesting we noticed is when you hit the kill switch while moving, the engine doesn't cut out immediately. It sort of slows the motorcycle down with what feels like engine compression until you pull in the clutch. Might this be some sort of off-road safety feature built in for when you accidentally hit the kill switch to not lose momentum entirely? No idea, but interesting nevertheless. There's a great throaty sound when you blip the throttle and a pleasant hum of an exhaust note as you potter around town. It isn't loud by any means, but it's not bad as a stock exhaust. Here, take a listen. And now, as a special treat for you guys, he has the same bike, same road, same rider, but with an Acro slip-on. Enjoy. Go check out our full pure sound video for more. The adjustable brake lever has a good linear feel. There's not a lot of initial bite, but the Brembos will get the job done, albeit with a bit of fork dive. On the road, it has to be said, the rear brake lacks feel and stopping power though. Also, the rear brake lever folds up in case of a tip over to prevent it from snapping off. A nice touch, we think. ABS feels intrusive, like it kicks in just a little bit sooner than you'd like, but as safety is the main issue here, it's totally understandable. And speaking of ABS, it can easily be disengaged to the rear for off-road use by holding in a button for a few seconds. Switching the bike off will re-engage the ABS though. Right out the box, the bike felt very smooth. It just soaks up bumps on our often less than stellar roads. The forks are adjustable for both compression and rebound. On the road, she feels extremely planted and confident. Initial tip-in happens quickly and the bike holds its line just fine. Front end feel is great considering the big skinny 21-inch front. Something else that impressed us is just how stable this bike is in a straight line. Also, traffic filtering is amazingly easy due to the bike being so narrow. Preload adjustment can be made via an easily accessible knob. Stiffening the shock allows you to account for extra weight added to the bike, like luggage for example. Or on the flip side, soften it to get the bike to squat a bit more for shorter folks to better manage the bike's height. The rear can also be adjusted for both compression and rebound, but you will require tools for that. All said, we were pretty happy with the way this bike was set up from the get-go. And with all the adjustability, we're certain you can tweak and fine-tune the suspension to find the setup that best suits you. At 205 kilos fully fueled, it sounds heavy, but it really isn't. Once on the move, it totally disappears. The perceived center of gravity feels higher when the bike is at a standstill, although moving it around isn't too difficult. But a lack of grab handles suck when trying to ship this bike around the garage. The tires we had on the T7 were the Pirelli Scorpion Rally STRs, 21-inch on the front and 18-inch on the rear. We found them to be pretty grippy on the road, but not so great in the rain. Also, they were quite noisy on the highway. Something easily changeable and will ultimately come down to individual preference and intended use. As soon as this bike moves, it becomes very comfortable. The reach to the bars is great, but for taller riders, a set of bar risers would not go amiss. You sit in the bike rather than on top of it, making you feel in complete control at all times. The tall seating position is great for looking over traffic while you're plotting your next move. Your legs are in a very relaxed and neutral position, although larger riders with big boots might find the peg arrangement a bit cramped. And on that topic, the pegs are very grippy and standing on them they feel super comfortable. The rubber mounts can even be removed for more aggressive off-road exploits. The aforementioned larger boot wearers might want to think about peg extenders, but be warned, that might cause problems when putting your feet down at stops. One thing that was a problem for our tallest rider Ben was the way that the clutch cover sticks out quite a bit on the right hand side. That can get annoying very quickly as it's right in the way of where you place your leg. The T7 comes equipped with a non-adjustable screen. We would highly recommend earplugs as wind gets forced onto your helmet, making anything above 80 km an hour very noisy. On the flip side, the wind deflectors work well though. They do an excellent job of keeping unwanted wind blast off of your torso. The switchgear works really nicely and feels like it could withstand quite a bit of abuse. There's a reassuring click when you press a button, the layout is simple and intuitive to use. All in all, nothing we could find fault with. On the left side, we have flash to pass, hazard warning lights, high-low beam switch, indicators, and a horn. And on the right, kill switch, info select toggle, and a starter button. The LCD dash is very Spartan and utilitarian. This might appeal to the more rough and rumble crowd who want a fuss-free experience. It looks like an old-school Game Boy and jiggles about quite a bit as you ride. Tech lovers won't dig it, but we kinda did. Info displayed includes speed readout, tach, gear position indicator, time, fuel gauge, air and engine temp, as well as various bits of trip info. As far as tech goes, there's not much. You have switchable rear ABS and a little display to tell you that you're riding economically. That's about it. Less distractions and even less to go wrong. That's quite appealing to some. The pillion seat isn't nearly as bad as it looks. Even on longer rides, our passengers said they felt very comfortable on the T7. Something to note, riders with big boots will fight their pillions for peg space. The passenger pegs are comfortably placed however. Just take care not to get your boot caught on the exhaust. A lack of grab handles makes life tough for passengers looking for somewhere to hold on to. But we're happy to report there's more than enough power pumping from that 700cc parallel twin heart to get the job done. Much to our surprise, the T7 makes for quite a great two-up riding experience. The bike sports a 16-litre tank returning around 4.8 litres per 100 Ks. This makes for a respectable 330 Ks of range. Also, the fuel filler cap detaches completely, making you feel like a real dirt bike bro in the fuel station forecourt. In terms of luggage, there's nothing as standard. However, there are some handy-dandy mounting points supplied. More on this in a later Q&A video. So, we couldn't have a Tenere 700 and not take it off-road at all. That led us to a question. Does the lack of electronics make this bike harder to ride for us novices? Well, herewith a brief summary of what we learned. Firstly, the bike was designed with stand-up riding in mind. It's so easy to control and natural feeling. Even newbies such as ourselves could appreciate just how good the bike feels when you take it off the beaten path. Something else we noticed is the way the screen forces air onto you, cooling you down when you're riding in a standing position. It doesn't feel like it gets in your way at all. Something that was a bane on the road turned out to be a boon in the dirt. Interesting. The rear brake was something that we didn't much care for on the road. However, off-road we found it to work just fine. With ABS disengaged, it really doesn't take much to lock up the rear and do some skids. Is it effective at slowing you down? Not massively, but good fun nevertheless. We weren't huge fans of the tyres off-road. We found we never had complete confidence in them to really push the bike to see where our limits are. But again, this is more of a skill level thing. The throttle felt pretty jerky when trying to keep a steady speed in second gear. The constant lunging made for a bit of an unsettling ride. Rather pop it in third or fourth where things become a lot more manageable, and using this engine's fantastic torque means you can ride this bike with ease at a lower speed but in a higher gear. The bouncy dash was a bit of an annoyance on the road. However, the fact that it's on rubber mountings means that when the bike gets bouncy, the dash stabilizes. Crazy how that works. So, is the T7 a tough beast to tame? Not really. As your skill level ramps up, you'll definitely appreciate the lack of electronic interference getting in the way of you having fun. If you are still finding your feet however, take it easy. There's not much of a safety net to catch you should your ambition outweigh your talent. Is it beginner friendly? Well, initial thoughts would be no, not for absolute beginners. But for a very select group of people who have a background in dirt riding, or for really tall riders just starting out, this might be an option. But for shorter riders just starting out, you should rather steer clear. Is this the bike to have if you could only have one? It could very well be. It's not perfect, but it would most certainly do. More so for a specific type of rider. For the guy who travels equal amounts on and off-road, absolutely. After all, its potential would be wasted if it only ever lives on the road, purely because it's such a fantastic bike off-road. There's a lot of competition in this hotly contested segment, and it looks as follows. Our question at the start of this video was, how does this bike fare as a road bike? And honestly, this bike surprised us in almost every aspect and exceeded a lot of our expectations. The engine, gearbox and the suspension combined to make this bike a fantastic road-going machine. It's not perfect, sure, but it has so many redeeming factors that'll make you fall in love with it, whether you want to or not, especially in this black color scheme. This bike will no doubt have its fans, and we completely see why. Cost for parts and servicing should be very reasonable, which appeals to a cash-conscious buyer. It's simple, pure and raw, and that genuinely appeals to a lot of folks. Tech lovers, on the other hand, need not apply. The Tenere 700 should absolutely be on your shortlist if you're in the market for a mid-weight, no-nonsense ADV. Perhaps not a true dual sport, but if you are 60% dirt and 40% road, this is the bike for you. As always, thanks for watching.